The following is a paid program, and the host is solely responsible for its content. Opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of KVOI or its sponsors.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Eye on the Ball. I'm Steve Rivera alongside Jay Gonzales, and you're listening to 1030 The Voice. Welcome to Wednesday's show. How was your 100,000-degree day, Jay?
I try to spend a lot of it indoors, but I do a weekly lunch with a group of people. And since we haven't been able to go to restaurants, we've been doing it out at Reed Park.
Oh, you're crazy.
Sit in a little circle under the trees, and it's getting a little hot for that now.
Kumbaya. What the heck are you guys talking about?
We talk sports mostly, but we try and keep politics out of the discussion because we just don't want to be in a bad mood.
You want to still like each other.
Right? Well, it's not even that, because we're kind of all on the same page, but it's my brothers and some close friends and that type of thing. But what we do is we avoid it just because it just gets us fired up. So we try and talk about fun stuff, and a lot. We talk about our show. I get a lot of input on our show there, and it's good input.
You have a big family, so we have a few listeners,
right? And what they do is they keep me in my place, and that's a good thing.
Somebody needs to.
But they give us some suggestions, and one of the suggestions that they had a while back was we need to talk about the high schools, which is what we're going to do today.
And voila.
There it is.
Here he comes. Hey, so let's have some little fun before we talk about NBA, MLB, stuff like that. Racehorse, Belmont's opening here pretty soon.
Right.
And it's going to be the Belmont in a couple of weeks.
Right.
We had Bob Baffert up but a week or so ago.
Right.
That was a lot of fun. So today, a racehorse named Dr. Anthony Fauci finished second in his Belmont debut. So that's hope. He was beaten by a horse called Prisoner.
Oh God! Was he wearing a mask?
That may have been the
blinders
problem.
and a mask.
Yeah. So those I can't wait for the Belmont.
I'm ready for horse racing. I'm ready for the Belmont.
You're ready for anything.
I'm ready for anything.
Yeah.
I'm getting fired up. I've dreamed up a way for a few close friends to work with the golf tournament next week. I mean, it's just got to have something. It's just been too long.
Along those lines, the NBA is going to maybe possibly start.
Well, I like what I'm seeing out of the NBA. Those guys for a long time have seemed to have their act together under both recent commissioners. They just they just seem to have a good, as they say, a good feel for the room. And they're trying to figure out a way to do this, and I think what's going to happen, they've got a plan to start games in late July, run the playoffs through October. They're going to be all in one place. What I like about what they're doing though is that they're providing sort of a test case. Mm-hmm. It's going to be an opportunity for people who want to get their sports going to see how things work. And what, for instance, one of the key things, and we've talked about this, is, if you start a season and you've got teams, going back and forth and playing, how are you going to deal with that if somebody gets the coronavirus? And apparently, all of this is according to ESPN. There's going to be a vote on this plan in the NBA tomorrow, at which point it's expected to be approved. I'm sure all the details on it will come out. But ESPN has reported that what they're going to do regarding a player who tests positive, well, first of all, they're going to test everybody every day, which is an unbelievable way to have to do this.
Right.
NBA doesn't have 90 guys on their teams like a college football team does,
and they have tons of money,
and they have a lot of money. But the plan is to test everybody every day, and then if somebody comes up with the virus, they're going to isolate that person away from the team. They're not going to say, okay, that team is done because they've got a guy with the virus. They're just going to keep testing everybody else every day. So essentially, it's a thing where if you got it, you're out, and if you don't have it, you get to keep playing.
Right.
And so that I can see that being sort of a model for how they're going to try and do things.
Can the Lakers win the title with only 4 players by the end by October?
Well, that's going to be interesting to see. What if somebody on a team does get it, and then now they test everybody and 4 guys have it?
Right.
What's going to happen there? But again, it's that they're going to figure out ways to deal with that. But it just looks to me like what we're seeing is that people are coming up with ways to do this.
And the NBA looks like, I was going to use the phrase, canary in the coal mine. They're the test case.
Right, they are the test case, and I think that, again, when you think about Adam Silver and what he's done since he became the commissioner,
right?
He's been as forward thinking of commissioners, and again, he was the first commissioner of any of the major sports to embrace the whole gambling thing. And I'm saying that from a standpoint, and not
Tell
just
me, I can't even remember.
To all the degenerates, but he was the first one who came out and said, we should embrace this. Find a way to make money off of it, but quit fighting gambling and saying it's all bad.
Right. When did this happen? God,
this was a couple of years ago.
Okay, so tell me.
It was a couple of years ago when he came out and said that gambling is something that's here.
Right.
So instead of fighting it, let's embrace it, let's monitor it, let's make sure that we police it, and let's possibly figure out a way to make some money off of it.
Along those lines, Jay, maybe 20 years ago, I was at a Final Four, and that came up. People talking about gambling and the money lines and things, or the lines, and people were saying, well, we were going to encourage newspapers not to put them in the paper, which was stupid. That was, they're going to find them anywhere. And I'm thinking, here are the big execs of the NCAA, but they're going to take money from casinos. They're going to take from the local casinos. Isn't that a little whatever the word is, okay, we'll talk about it here, but we'll take the money here?
Well, see, and that's the thing. I think what you want to do
hypocritical,
is,
God.
Well, and it is. It is. But I think what they're trying to do, and what I think the NBA is leading the way on, is saying, okay,
it's there.
It's not going to go away.
Right, it's there, right.
It's not going away.
Right.
So let's figure out how we can benefit from this, because it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. So let's figure out a way to use it.
Yeah.
And so,
I don't know why I didn't know that.
And so he was the first one that came out and said, maybe it was kind of like, maybe we should start looking into this and think about this. And that's when DraftKings was coming out and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so now, and again, so he's kind of led the way in a lot of this stuff. So I like the fact that the NBA is kind of leading the way of, okay, this is what we're going to do. Everybody watch.
Right.
Let's see how this works.
No, he has been very progressive in the things that he's done. Went after the China thing, at least kind of try to put a quill on it.
Right. And that's not to say the NBA does everything right. Nobody does everything right. But at least you feel like they've got a good handle on what the issues are and how to address some of these issues.
No,
I mean, when you see some of the mess ups that the Major League Baseball has had, the stuff, in the NFL with domestic violence and stuff like that, and the missteps they've taken, it just seems like for the most part, the NBA has done a good job of kind of getting a feel for the room and kind of dealing with the stuff as it comes along instead of trying to avoid hard issues.
Along those lines, we have a minute left. Talking about a room, it looks like the MLB doesn't have a room. Oh, God, those guys continue to mess this up. So now MLB suggested an 82-game season. The players came back and said, we want 114 games and we want to play through October. MLB has put its foot down and said, the owners put their foot down and said, we're not playing through the end of October because weather's not going to allow us to play through October. We got to end it, earlier. We can't go into November is basically what the MLB is saying. And the players want to go further on. So the players rejected MLB's plan. The MLB rejected the players' plan. Now the MLB is saying we're not even going to be able to do 82 games now because you guys waited too long. So let me just give you quick odds before we go to break. The odds of the season actually happening.
I'm going to say less than 50%.
Yeah,
of there being a season at all.
Right.
These guys can't get it together.
Right. With that, let's take a quick break here. Come back with Joe Paddock on the other side here on 1030 The Voice.
Your source for trusted local news and talk. 1030 The Voice.
These days, most families are concerned with having the right insurance coverage. Protecting your family, home, auto, and other valuable possessions can be challenging and sometimes expensive. Crest Insurance gives you flexible options and solutions while saving you money. Insurance is not one size fits all, and at Crest, we find the coverage that's best for you and your family. Visit us online at www.crestins.com or call us toll free at 888-881-5765.
1030 The Voice. In times of crisis, information is vital.
Director of the Centers for Disease Control, Robert Redfield.
The greatest public health crisis in more than 100 years. A large majority of the American public are taking the social distancing recommendations to heart. Everybody who's not quite there to really go all in on this, if we just social distance, we will see this decline.
Trusted local news and talk about coronavirus. 1030 The Voice.
Tucson's source for trusted news and talk. 1030 The Voice.
Hey, welcome back to Eye on the Ball here on 1030 The Voice. I'm Steve Rivera alongside Jay Gonzales. And now on the phone we have Joe Paddock. He's the Assistant Executive Director of the Arizona Interscholastic Association. Joe, how are you?
Okay, Steve, yourself doing well tonight?
Fine, trying to avoid the heat. But are you in Phoenix or in Tucson?
Actually, I'm in Tucson right now. I took a day, so back down here. It's a little bit cooler, about 8 degrees cooler.
Yes. Welcome to the vacation. You're alongside here. And Joe, good to have you on the show. We have a lot of questions for you.
Joe,
Okay.
first of all, I was going through the guidelines and those types of things that you put out, and I think there might already be a misconception. These are guidelines. These are for things for people to consider. Because you put these guidelines out doesn't mean that they have to start bringing students onto campus and that type of stuff. Isn't that correct?
That's absolutely correct. If you look at the title, in fact, it has the word recommended first. Recommended guidelines for return to play, basically, is what it is. We're very fortunate that we have a Sports Medicine Advisory Committee, or SMAC as it's called. It's about 19 doctors and certified athletic trainers, and they're the ones that went through all the information and gathered all that and put it together and then shared it with the executive board.
So where is your information coming from? It's got to be coming from a lot of different places, doesn't it? I mean, are you in touch with the universities? Who are you in touch with that help you put these guidelines together?
So one of the nice things with these doctors is they're so well connected, and because of the positions they're in already, they have a good bit of that information. I believe if you look in the back of the guideline, they even cite a lot of their sources, but it's coming from the CDC, the governor's office, the Arizona Department of Health, Maricopa Department of Health, FEMA, at least one. I think actually two of our doctors are actually public health physicians, so they're a little more aware of what's out there and some of the procedures that are already in place.
Let me ask you a question. I hope I say this correctly. Back in the spring or early March, I think it was, and you can correct me on dates and stuff, you guys weren't the first to say we're going to cancel. Other people decided to cancel a lot of things. You guys held steady and then eventually canceled. And then you guys kind of moved the date. You guys would return and play. I don't know if I'm in the majority of this, but I thought it was great in a sense that you guys held out hope that there would be a return of sports because the kids deserved it. What was the blowback from that for you guys, or was there?
Actually, there wasn't much. I think most people are in the same position you're in. The same belief was that, let's see if we can make this work at all. The kids deserve that opportunity, and so we were holding out hope, following things nationally. But as we've seen this whole thing unfold, we know that looking nationally is not necessarily an answer for us here in Arizona or any state. That we have to look more specifically into our own communities, because even statewide, we range. There's such a difference. Everything from the reservations up north on down through Flagstaff, the valley up there in Phoenix, the Tucson area, southern Arizona. It's all being impacted differently.
So let me ask you, what's been the feedback, or what kind of input have the school districts had? And I get you guys have I think an even bigger job than, say, the NCAA, just you within the state. The NCAA has 10, 11 conferences to deal with.
Right.
You've got how many hundreds of school districts that you're working with just within the state. And the reason I ask that is because just in the last couple of hours, an interview has showed up on the KVOA website here where Dr. Trujillo from TUSD, the largest school district around, basically said, we understand the AIA's guidelines that we can bring students back to campus in June, but we're not going to. So what has been some of the input and the feedback that you've gotten from the districts about how to go forward?
Sure. So, yeah, that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions about those guidelines. They are their guidelines, their phases, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. There are no dates set with them. When people start talking about dates, they're really probably referring more to things coming out of the governor's office as the governor's office begins to release and make things more open. So under the governor's guidelines, the Arizona Department of Health guidelines, things began to open a little bit more this week, and that's why some schools began looking at June 1st to enter phase 1. So as our schools look at it, they need to understand two things. One, they control and they decide what they want to do as far as the timing. So their governing board, their superintendent, is going to help make that decision. And then our experience has been that they depend largely upon the local Department of Health, so Pima Health Department, up in the Phoenix, Maricopa, and so on. And they're the ones that can give us a little bit more feedback and a little more guidance for our schools as to when they can open.
This must
here in.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was going to say so here in southern Arizona, what my understanding is that at least most of the superintendents of the public schools down here in southern Arizona have agreed to wait until July 1st date to open campuses. Up in the Phoenix area, about half of them are opened. I'm not even sure if it's half, but some opened on June 1st on Monday, and others are waiting until June 15th.
It
varies.
I was going to say, Joe, that Jay and I talk about this all the time. The line in the sand continues to move, and it must be a challenging time to say, okay, we're going to do this, and then things change, and then we're going to do this, and things change.
Absolutely. It's with this situation, there's no definitive answer right now. We're getting questions about the start of football and the fall sports in general, and it's like, well, at this point, based upon what's being presented, it sounds like everything can start on time, but realistically, some schools are most likely going to start maybe a little bit later, and so their seasons are going to start a little bit later. Again, let's go way up north, and we have things coming. I think it was Monument Valley. I hope that's correct. I believe it was Monument Valley School District up there. They may not have fall sports, or it might be a limited number of fall sports. So it's really going to be kind of a wait and see, and then just help as best as we can.
We were talking earlier about the NBA and what they're doing, and it's sort of rolling out there to kind of put a plan together. Let's see how some of this stuff works, and there's going to be some more of that as we go along. The PGA Tour is doing one thing. Is that type of stuff helping you as well to see what's being done at the college level, what's being done at the pro level? Does that have any impact on how you guys are going about things? Are you watching that and paying attention to that?
Absolutely. Great question. And in fact, I'll go back to our SMAC committee. We have members on that Sports Medicine Advisory Committee that are from each of the professional sports up in the Phoenix area. So the Coyotes, the Diamondbacks, the Cardinals, we have doctors from those organizations, or at least health professionals from those organizations, that help keep us up to date with what they're doing and what they're seeing. And then the same thing, we have a couple of docs that are attached to the U of A. Actually, I think it's maybe athletic trainer down here at the U of A. Same thing might be true up at ASU. They're involved. So they're keeping us abreast of what's going on out there in the professional world as well as the NCAA. And then our executive director, Mr. Hines, has been in contact with the states, especially surrounding Arizona here. We're in what's called Section 7. So California, Utah, Colorado, some states like that. And so he's been keeping in touch with them. They meet usually on a weekly basis by Zoom, and just to kind of keep up to date with what's happening there.
This may be the dumbest question you'll get this year. I'll admit to it. And I'm just curious because everyone talks about the older section or the older community is the more vulnerable. So you obviously aren't the older group, at least the kids aren't. What's discussed with that, or how is that handled?
So, so you're talking about the adults that are involved with it. And honestly, that's a very large concern, not just for us, but for the school districts themselves, as they're taking a look to return back to school and for us to return to play. We're, obviously safety first for the kids, but the coaches need to come to some realization pretty quickly themselves that, hey, right now, the information that's out there is this is not affecting the students, the younger people, as much as it is adults. And so we have to be very conscientious about that. And that includes the umpires, the referees that are going to be out there for the game. So we have to take all of that into account.
Joe, I hate to ask you to speculate, but I'm going to ask you to speculate, okay? Where do you think we're headed? I know what we all hope is going to happen, but realistically, what can we kind of expect for some of these kids who, if I've got a kid who's going to be a senior in high school and he's a football player and that's the only sport he plays, I'm really worried about whether he's going to have any sport to play. Where do you think we're going to land on this? Any thoughts?
Yeah, we're pretty confident that there will be a fall sports season. Now, how long it's going to be, what it might look like, until we get a little bit further into July, about a month from now, I think we'll have a much better idea. Realistically, though, as we listen, the predictions are that the second wave is going to come through sometime here in the fall, and be that mid to late October, early November. And that's kind of when our fall seasons are beginning to wind down. Football-wise, the larger conferences go into the end of November, but the smaller conferences are finishing up about a couple weeks before that, about maybe even like Thanksgiving weekend. So we're hoping to get as much of a complete season as possible. Again, realistically, our expectation is we're going to have some schools that are going to not be able to play some games. And so far, we've had great cooperation from our conference leaders who have all indicated that, look, they're willing to adjust and help whatever needs to occur. And, going to try and make this as best an experience as we can, especially for the seniors. Certainly felt bad for the seniors this past spring. The softball players, the basketball, volleyball players, track and field all saw their season end abruptly. So we're just going to try and do the best that we can with it.
Along those lines, Joe, we got about a minute left, less than a minute probably. I have a question for somebody who texted me, asking me if there has been any discussion on a short fall baseball season or scrimmages since the spring was wiped out.
Nothing from the AIA, nothing that we sanctioned from AIA. Many of our schools already play at Fall League for baseball, and so that I'm sure that's probably what's going to continue. We've had questions about students who were seniors and would they be allowed to play this year, and the answer is no. They've exceeded their allotted semesters, and we simply were not the NCAA. We're educational athletics, and you have basically 4 years to play ball.
Right. Joe, we really appreciate you coming on. We're going to have you back.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Joe. Good. We appreciate the insight. Very good.
That was Joe Paddock of the AIA. Let's take a quick break here on 1030 The Voice.
CBS News at the top and bottom of every hour. 1030 The Voice, Tucson's trusted local news and talk.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. A sense of euphoria on Wall Street sent the stock averages 0.8 to more than 2% higher. The Dow added 527, the Nasdaq 75, the S&P 42. The gains have the Nasdaq only about 1.5% away from its record close set back in February, fueled by the ADP report that found about 2.8 million jobs cut by private businesses last month instead of the 9 million expected. We'll see a clearer picture of the labor market on Friday with the release of the May jobs report, but Bloomberg Economics says the labor market market can still count on millions more job losses, as many as 6 million, with the second wave of losses hitting white-collar workers in professional services, finance, and real estate. Delta Airlines wants your business. The carrier is planning to use larger planes or add flights if it has to, but it plans to block middle seats on all of its planes through September 30th. Delta and JetBlue are the only airlines to guarantee empty middle seats. Joan Doniger, Bloomberg Radio.
CBS News Update. All 4 officers involved in the encounter with George Floyd now face charges. State Attorney General Keith Ellison.
Hennepin County Attorney Michael Freeman and I filed a complaint that charges police officer King, Lane, and Tao with aiding and abetting murder in the second degree, a felony offense.
CBS's Jeff Pegues in Minneapolis.
This crowd has been celebrating. There is a celebratory air here. People are barbecuing. People are listening to music. I think it's fair to say that they are celebrating George Floyd's life.
Floyd family attorney Ben Crump.
We cannot celebrate because an arrest is not a conviction, and we want justice.
A newly released autopsy report reveals Floyd was known to be positive for the coronavirus on April 3rd. CBS News Update, I'm Pam Coulter.
Time to update those old kitchen cabinets? Call the Window Depot today. The Window Depot is not only the #1 warehouse for windows and doors, we now have a great selection of kitchen and bath cabinets at Tucson's best prices. The Window Depot is Tucson's top spot for granite and quartz countertops to finish the new kitchen or the replacement of that old worn-out Formica. So call us today at 290-8545 or 622-6430. The Window Depot, windows, doors, granite, and new kitchens.
This is Bill Buckmaster. Thursday during the noon hour, a newsmaker interview with Pima County Supervisor Steve Christie. Also, comet discoverer and former Parade magazine science editor Dr. David Levy. Buckmaster during the noon hour on Thursday on 1030 Tucson's Voice for trusted news talk. Anywhere in the world, live listening on my website 24/7, buckmastershow.com.
Trusted local news and talk all day, every day. 1030 The Voice.
Hey, welcome back to Eye on the Ball here on 1030 The Voice. I'm Steve Rivera alongside Jay Gonzales. Hey, we were talking about the Major League Baseball season that may or may not happen. You said maybe less than 50. I agree.
I'm not confident at all, and again, it's because it's the direction that it's going. It's going in a bad direction. We kind of rushed out into the break, but the players wanted a 114 game season that was going to take them past October. The owners have put their foot down and said we're not playing past October because of weather considerations and stuff like that. I think that's workable because there's so many dome stadiums. They could find places to play.
And they want 114 because they want their complete pay?
They want more of their pay. To the players, it's about what they've agreed to, and finally the league acknowledged this, the owners acknowledged this. What they agreed to at the start of this was that players would get a prorated pay.
And that's
based
fair.
On the number
Isn't that fair?
Right, that's fair. Everybody agreed to that, but then the owners soiled the whole thing by coming out with a different plan and capping pay based on revenue. And so that really pissed off the players. And now they're going at it. So now the players said we want 114 games. The owner said we're not doing 114 games because we can't have a season that long. And then they added, and because you took so long to decide, we can't even have the 82 game season we've projected. Now they've thrown out a 50 game season, which essentially is going to get a player about 30% of their pay.
I was going to say, so at 82 it would give them half.
It would give them half.
Okay, so they were okay.
So now it's a 50 game season, so it's like 30% of their pay, and the players are saying we can play more games than that, and we should.
Right.
So these guys are going in opposite directions. They're really, it's no longer a COVID issue. It's a money issue.
Which
and we've
course,
talked about that. We've said that a bunch of times.
Yeah.
So, I don't feel good about where they're headed. So, I think, Steve can tell you we're gonna have somebody on tomorrow that maybe can give us a little more insight into this.
Yes, it's going to be a fun day tomorrow. We're going to have Luis Gonzales on the show. We could talk a lot about this, the World Series Championship, a lot of things local, because he's here a lot in Tucson.
Yeah, and even more impressive, his title is Senior Advisor to the President and CEO of the Diamondbacks. So he's somebody who's right there. And I would imagine that he's right in the middle of this. And, he's been a player, so, I'd love to find out what his role is as it relates to management in the Diamondbacks. Then I want to ask him, what the hell are you guys doing? In a nice way. In a very nice way.
Well, you have a funny story to tell. We'll worry about that tomorrow.
Yeah.
But, he's a hero in many Arizonans' eyes.
If I think back to my kind of short Arizona Diamondbacks fandom, I'm going to say he's probably was my favorite Diamondbacks player. We share the same last name. Now, he spells it with a Z on the end, so he spells his name wrong. I spell my name right. I have an S on the end. But he was one of my favorites, and because he was just a good guy.
Let me ask you this, because it was short, maybe one night in October. What was the fandom? How long did that last?
Oh, I loved him. Here's the thing that again, I had a relationship with the Diamondbacks because I was
because you're
Tucson.
Dodger,
I was at Tucson Electric,
yeah.
and we were involved with them with spring training and stuff. For instance, I was able to go on a team trip where we traveled with the team, so I got to I didn't talk to him on that trip because we were told not to.
Yeah.
But you saw him interacting with players and things like that, and always just seemed like a really good guy. And like you said, I've got a very funny story to tell about him, and it's a great story that'll really tell you what kind of a guy he is and how much I like him. I've got one autographed baseball in all of the memorabilia and stuff that I have, and it's a signed World Series baseball by Luis.
Oh yeah. I have one as well. I gave one as a gift last week to a friend in Santa Fe because I knew he was a fan of his as well. So I assume you didn't wear your Dodger hat on the plane.
No. I didn't. It was a great experience. It was as a large sponsor of the Diamondbacks. We were one of the things that we got was we could take. I can't remember if it was 4 or 6 people, whoever we wanted to take on a trip, and we went on a road trip with them. And I got to do it one year, and we only went to San Diego.
Quick trip.
Yeah, it was a quick trip, but we went to San Diego. We got to play some golf, and then we were on the team playing with them, and that type of stuff, and it was fun, And we got great seats at the game, and actually sat in a seat we got to rotate, and I got to sit in the seat right next to the dugout where you actually see what's going on in the dugout and stuff like that. But we were on the plane, and then the players came on, and they all walked by, and some said hi, some kind of greeted us and stuff like that, and so it was fun, and that was a good time. I had a good time with that.
Should be fun. Kind of a guest that we've had. We have never had Luis Gonzales, but it kind of along the lines that we've had in the last month or so.
Right. We again, there's a lot of big personalities that have been around Tucson that are in Arizona, and that's one of the things we want to try to do. We've been able to do that so far with some of the different contacts that we have. We want to keep doing that. We're not going to have guys like this every day, all the time. We're not ESPN, we're not Dan Patrick, we're not Colin Cowherd or any of those guys, but we feel we can bring in some prominent guests, and Luis is one of them, and I'm looking forward to see what's his role been with the Diamondbacks, and being a front office guy now, versus when he was a player, and how all that works. So we're going to have him for some time, and I hope he'll have some good insight and some good stories for us.
Let me throw a curve at you. You're a native. You've been around, and you know how this is in Tucson. I think that Arizona fans have this great need, or whatever word it is, to be like Duke in basketball. They've had this Duke envy. I call it Duke envy. It started in the mid-'80s when they wanted to be the Duke of the West. And I could be wrong. You could tell me otherwise. But they've always felt that way. We want to be Duke. You see it online. It's Duke this, Duke that, blah, blah, blah. So now is Zion is in trouble. Could be in trouble.
Right.
Duke could be in trouble. Tucson must be reveling.
Oh, I think I'm not 100% sure I agree with the Duke envy thing. I think the envy is they want Arizona fans want to be national champions more than they've been.
Right.
And they want to be to more Final Fours, than they're envious of anybody who does it more often than anybody. And Duke's one of those teams, Kentucky's one of those teams, Kansas is one of those teams. And I think Arizona tends to feel like they're in that neighborhood when for about the last maybe since mid 2000s.
Yes.
2005, 2006 timeframe.
It hasn't been.
They haven't.
Yeah.
So I think it's a blue blood envy more than anything. But,
Okay.
there was a good rivalry with Duke for a while there. Arizona and Duke played each other a bunch of times. They've played each other in the NCAAs. There was the 2001 loss in the championship game, which I think is still bitter for a lot of people because of what they thought was some favorable refereeing for Duke and that type of stuff. But Arizona's had its way with Duke too. I think I saw a stat the other day that Arizona is one of two teams that's got a winning record against Mike Krzyzewski. Something like that. Arizona's 5-3 against Duke since Krzyzewski's been the coach. So there's some envy. But I will say I do believe there's a large segment of our U of A fan population who's rooting for something bad to happen to Duke as a result of what's going on with Zion Williamson. I'm in total agreement with that. But you know what? That's not just in Tucson, Arizona.
No. There's a lot of Duke out there. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of, but even Kansas and Kentucky and Louisville and all these schools. It's kind of our mentality of let's knock down the guys as the winners as much as we possibly can. And Arizona gets that. They get that from within the league. Right. I mean, think a perfect example. Think of how many times Lute Olson deserved to be Pac-10 or Pac-12 Coach of the Year and wasn't.
And didn't get it.
Because, they're Arizona, so they're supposed to be good. He gets all the good players. Well, isn't that part of being a great coach? So there is that envy to a degree. And, I know. I mean, I think if you went out and polled, just stood on a corner and polled people who come by and have any knowledge of college basketball, they're going to tell you, I really hope something bad happens.
Oh, yeah, Duke. Sure, no question. And it could or could not happen.
Well, we don't know. It's not looking good, but you know what? It wasn't looking good for Arizona when the FBI arrests helped. I remember I was just sitting at home one morning, and I got a text from, I can't even remember who it was. It said, Book Richardson got arrested, and that's all it said. I'm like, and so I'm thinking, DUI, what? All right.
September 27th, I think
so
it
then
was.
All of a sudden Twitter starts blowing up, and I'm like, an FBI investigation? What's going on?
Right.
And so, and there were people out there, prominent people, Dick Vitale, Jay Billis, a lot of those, really prominent people who were kind of hoping Arizona had been caught doing something really bad, and to this day continue to ignore that other schools are involved in this too. I haven't heard Dick Vitale say one thing about this thing with Duke. Now, we're supposed to believe that maybe he learned a lesson by jumping out ahead of Arizona. No way. No way.
There's no question he plays favorites.
No question about it.
There's no question.
And same with some of the others. But again, we have a tendency to try to knock down winners, and a lot of us are guilty of it.
And you talked about this yesterday. I've always said this too. I think the best teams in the West, Oregon, Arizona, Gonzaga now, and not that there's envy with this Arizona-Gonzaga thing, but it was good to see, or weird to see, Sean talking about how he wanted to be a little Gonzaga-like.
Yeah, and I kind of like that because I feel like he's just trying to figure out things to build his program back to where we all feel it should be,
and him too, because he's acknowledged that.
Right, and he's acknowledged that. So I think it's a great thing that he's been, that he's taken on that mentality that we got to start winning more, and and even acknowledging we haven't won enough over the last few years, and got to get back. And so I like what he's doing. I like what he's saying, and let's see. Let's see what happens. I think Arizona basketball is going to be, if nothing else, interesting for the next few years.
I think that's
to see how this develops.
That's the right word.
It's going to be really interesting.
We don't know.
And I sure hope the fans realize that in the end, what they're trying to do is win again, and win a lot again.
Well, that's what they're hoping they do.
Yeah.
I mean, this last year they were hoping that too. Hey, Tom, let's go to take a quick break here on 1030 The Voice.
Tucson's trusted voice for local news and talk. 1030 The Voice.
Go local. Make the switch. At Hughes Federal Credit Union, we offer customized solutions and get you what you need faster. Like our quick and easy credit cards and auto loans. All done online from start to finish. Save time using mobile banking, bill pay, mobile deposit, and mobile pay with just a few clicks. Live large, accessing 30,000 plus surcharge-free ATMs and free debit card choices. Make the switch to Hughes today. Visit hughesfcu.org/switch. Certain restrictions apply. Insured by NCUA.
1030 The Voice is committed to supporting our local businesses. Many are struggling. We want to help them get the word out that they're still open and ready to serve you. Go to kvoi.com. Click on the Stay Tucson Strong page, where you can find a link to support our business partners. You can make your dollar count by buying from local businesses and in return, help them keep their workers employed. Find out more at kvoi.com. Together, we can stay Tucson Strong with 1030 The Voice.
Trusted local news and talk. 1030 The Voice.
Hey, welcome back to Eye on the Ball here on 1030 The Voice. I'm Steve Rivera alongside Jay Gonzales. So I don't know if you saw this, but I'm sure you did. Drew Brees talking about the NFL.
Yeah, we were talking, I think it was yesterday, you asked me about, what I thought of athletes who come out and take a stand, what kind of impact they can have, and those kinds of things. My position is that I like when they do that because I think they should because they have a platform.
Along those lines, before you continue, we talked about Michael Jordan not saying anything.
Right.
Tiger Woods not saying anything, not to disrupt their life.
Right.
Sometimes you say something and it disrupts your life.
And it does. And what happens is, unfortunately, and it's just kind of where we are as a country. It really is that, okay, we want you to say something, but you got to say something that agrees with what I think.
Right.
And so now Drew Brees, who by all accounts is
a good guy.
People love him. He's loved in New Orleans. He's done a lot of stuff for the community. He comes out and says he agrees with the issue that things have to be done and things have to be fixed as it regards to racism in this country, but he doesn't agree with people who kneel in front of the flag. And oh boy, one of his own teammates has come out and shredded him. A lot of others, even some prominent athletes like LeBron James have come out. And again, it's one of those things where he said something that he believes, and he's being ripped for it. Now, I had a kind of a side experience with this with some people that I know just in the last couple of days that people have a right to their opinion, and because you don't like it doesn't mean that
it's
they
wrong.
should be
or
that
it's
wrong.
Right.
So he's just saying, and I'm not saying that he's right or wrong. I'm just saying he had this opinion, and now because he's expressed it, he's being shredded for it.
Sure. No. And you talked about the teammate now, and you've covered some teams. We talk about it with Tom and myself. The one thing that will destroy a very good team is horrible chemistry.
Right.
I've covered a few. I'm sure you've covered one or two, and you say, "How is this team so bad?" Well, there's stuff in the back that
there's
you don't
stuff
know.
in the back, and when it comes, like I've said before, when it comes time for you to walk through a wall for somebody, if you're not going to, then everybody loses. So you've got a situation with Drew Brees where it's what's going to happen in the locker room now, and you see the constant response on social media to what he said, and you got to wonder. Somebody even suggested, will this cause him to retire rather than going back to this locker room?
Just for expressing his opinion.
He expressed his opinion, and people are mad at him. Will this make him retire? I can't imagine that it will, because I'm sure he's not going to want to go out that way.
Yeah, let me ask the grumpy old guy behind the screen what he thinks.
You're bringing in the cynic, huh? I think, look, and coming from a predominantly hockey background, it's really funny to me, and it's this way in the rest of sports. We want these guys to have personalities. We want them to say something. We want them to be, a part of something and be colorful and whatever. Then the minute they do, they're shouted down for it.
Right.
And that drives me crazy. So whether you agree or disagree with Drew Brees, whether you want to take Malcolm Jenkins' side and his response to it, the point is you can't have it both ways. You have to allow the players to speak their minds and be accepting of that, or we just need to tell them all to shut up.
Right. And Malcolm Jenkins has an opinion, and his opinion is completely opposite of Drew Brees. But I think there's a way to come out and tell Drew Brees, I think you're wrong. And so, look, we got to be able to have these discussions.
Sure.
And the problems we're having right now is because we can't seem to have these discussions.
Right.
And so I don't know. It's going to be now we're at a point where how's this going to affect the New Orleans Saints? And, when you think about what's at stake for a comment that somebody made, I don't know. I mean, all of a sudden, is Vegas going to reduce their odds for winning the Super Bowl because of something that Drew Brees said?
Probably. Let me say this. You've been in PR for a while, inside in terms of being in the news business. You jumped to the PR as well. I think it's one of the reasons why U of A brings their players to the podium and becomes more visible for everybody, where you don't get that bad quote from a player in the back to better control the issue.
Well, yeah. Again, that story that I told about, Judd Bushler and some quotes that he gave me,
30 years ago.
It wasn't on the podium. I just went and talked to him, and he gave me some quotes and got his coach mad at me because of something that Judd said.
Yeah,
so.
and you're doing your job, and you loved what he was saying.
Well, of course, it was great stuff.
It was great stuff.
But and as a PR guy, you sit there and you try and control as much of that as you can. But Drew Brees went on a show, and he said these things, and it got away from him. I'm not from him. It got away from the Saints.
Correct.
Now the Saints as an organization are dealing with this, and they've got problems now within their own organization among the team members.
From a guy who was just speaking his mind about how he feels.
Again, and I get that people are trying to tell him you're wrong and you don't understand. What you said suggests you don't understand the issue.
Right. I don't know if
I think Drew Brees is a smart guy.
Sure,
I think he does understand the issue.
Sure.
I think you got to give him credit for being a smart guy.
Do you like red, Jay?
Do I like red?
Do you like red?
Yeah.
Why not blue? Come on. Anything that you say is going to
exactly.
It's going to be okay. Why not orange? Yeah. You answer the question.
You can, and it does happen because, again, it's kind of like there's only one side of everything, and that's just not true.
Right.
There's 2, 3, 4, 5, 20 sides of this stuff.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know how to feel. I disagree with what he said as well.
Sure.
Okay, I do. I'll just say that. I disagree with what he said.
But
yeah, he has a right to say that.
Right, and that's his belief, and you can't,
He has a right to say that.
Yeah.
I would like to think that somebody in the organization is going to say, okay, guys, let's all get in the room. Let's hash this out.
Right.
And let's figure it out. Getting back to, for instance, what we talked about yesterday with Sean Miller. Jason Terry said something that you would think would have banished, Jason Terry from Sean Miller's program for life. Instead, they got it. Sean talked about it. They got together. They talked it out. And guess what? Jason Terry's an assistant coach now because they were able to deal with it.
Talk it out.
That's what we need to do. A whole heck of a lot more of that.
Yeah. I've asked you this a time or two, I think. If you've covered 20 or been involved with 20 teams, you've had 2 or 3 teams where chemistry was just because of stupid things like this.
Sure.
Stupid's not the right word. Controversial things like this.
Well, sure, and that's even happened recently. You see a team, and it's happened more with Arizona basketball.
Sure.
You see a team. And you think, why didn't they do better? Then after the fact,
you hear
through people that were close to the program, and again, I'm not saying people within the program like in McHale. I'm talking people who know the players, and then the season ends and players are out talking to they're talking to their friends, they're talking to people out in the community, and then you start to find out wait a minute, these guys hated each other.
Right.
That's why they didn't do better.
Jay, you know what the problem with there too is? There's only one ball.
Well, that's it, and again, you start to hear stuff, and you go, okay, that explains some things.
Oh yeah, no question. But you can, as being a reporter, and you kind of see it, you kind of know.
Sure.
You're like a detective. You know, but it's hard to prove.
Right.
And they're going to deny.
Sure.
And it's a tough question. Do you guys like each other? Of course you don't. After the fact, you say, makes sense now.
Yeah, it does. And when you're not especially with the way it is now, that you don't have the access that you used to have to be able to get into a locker room and see the guys around each other, it's a lot harder to tell. Right. You're only seeing players at news conferences, and that's it.
And it's almost orchestrated.
Right, and it is orchestrated, and so you don't get to see what you used to see.
Yeah.
So it's a lot harder to tell. And you don't find out until after the fact when people are, when players and people in the program start talking to other people out in the community.
You go ahead.
Well, let me ask you this question. If Drew Brees is 24 years old and on the verge of becoming a starting quarterback or just became a starting quarterback, does he have the ability to make this opinion known?
No.
Well, he can make. I think he can make the opinion known, but I think what happened. It's what happens afterwards. Now afterwards, it's like, how are you going to deal with that? If Drew Brees was a 25-year-old quarterback who's already had let's say he's done what
Mahomes
has done. God,
I could read your mind. It's just sad.
Let's say he's done what Mahomes has done, and he's that age, and he's doing this for the New Orleans Saints, and he says this. What are you doing? What are you doing if you're ownership? Are you going to try? Are you going to say we got to get him out of here? Or are you going to say we got to get Malcolm Jenkins out of here? Yeah. What are you going to do?
What he said was, I don't think it was bad. He was just talking what he felt, but you could see that it's not good. Is that right?
There are some people out there who are saying, and again, who knows, that he just broke up the locker room.
I don't disagree with that.
And he maybe has, but you'd like to think that even maybe he's gotten on the phone with Malcolm Jenkins and they've already talked it out.
Correct.
Maybe he has, maybe he hasn't, or maybe he will.
Along those lines that you talk about, there's no really right answer. There's no right answer.
There's not. Again, as much as I have my beliefs, and there's a lot of people out there with beliefs on the polar opposite of mine.
Yeah.
And they express them, and sometimes they express them to me, and it makes me mad. I want to pull my hair out, but I also have to understand they get to think that.
Let me ask you along those lines, and this might be a question you don't have to answer. So you have X amount of friends on Facebook. You may not even know who they are. Have you unfriended people for saying stuff that you don't believe in?
I absolutely have.
And that's your right.
And that's my right.
Yeah.
If they want to keep saying that stuff, doesn't mean I have to listen.
They don't exactly, and I'm the same way.
Right. I know. I do that, and I've done that to some people who are pretty close to me. So yeah.
That's why I asked. Okay. Hey, good day today. Tomorrow could be great.
Tomorrow,
day.
Luis Gonzales.
Yes.
Luis Gonzales going to come here and talk some serious baseball with us.
Mr. On's favorite son, or number one son, or whatever son he is. Hey, tomorrow at 10:30, The Voice. Hope to hear you or see you guys. Talk to you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
When driving in Arizona, move over or slow down for any flashing lights. Move over for tow truck drivers, highway crews, and emergency responders. Move over for any vehicle with its hazards flashing. Because at 65 miles per hour, a vehicle travels over 95 feet in 1 second. 1 second that could change everything.